Hey everybody, you're very welcome in the Pro Football Ireland's NFL Wildcard Preview Podcast, dropping on your podcast outlets on a Thursday. I hope you're getting settled into the new year. Michael McQuaid, Mark Hogan, Jason Hayes. I want to welcome both these lads back. You had a very nice Christmas, I think. Mark, have you had a good Christmas, New Year? Happy New Year. What's the crack?
Yeah, Happy New Year. If you don't believe it's too late to say that, and happy postseason to those who celebrate. If you're like me or Jason, you're probably looking at the coaching carousel, or maybe you're on mock drafts. Jason, it is going to be a wildcard heavy podcast, of course, but on a scale of Wilfred Nancy to Amarin getting fired, how surprised were you with the Jim Harbaugh or the John Harbaugh news coming down yesterday?
I didn't see it coming at all. Like I knew they were talking about having a conversation as the season ended, but I think Bill Barnwell summed it up nicely, saying that the best team with a job opening is the Baltimore Ravens, and the best coach on the market is John Harbaugh. So it's a weird move. Sometimes a refresh works. We're looking at Seattle. They moved on from Pete Carroll, despite never really having a massive downward spiral before him, and look how that's panned out this year with Mike McDonald. So sometimes new energy can help, and maybe moving on is the best for both guys.
It's actually funny, isn't it, Michael, when you think of how the head coaching, like, you're guaranteed to get fired as a head coach. You're going to have 6 or 7 go, but in the Premier League then, after, or in Scotland, Jason, you've got your wish come through.
That whole thing in Scotland's mental. Like I'm actually a distant relation to Martin O'Neill, which is a whole different conversation. So yeah, there's the bad stat in this podcast. Can I just jump in and say, Harbour's an absolute legend of Baltimore. But why would he walk into a job after 20 minutes? I mean, there's all these different jobs open, but does he want a year off? Our situations like the New York Giants, the Cleveland Browns, fixable. And before anybody says to me, well, the Giants have got all these rookies, they're a Jackson Dart concussion away next year from being completely irrelevant again if Cam Scalabo goes down. So if I'm Harbour, I go to Cancun for a year and just chill out, man. Or maybe go to college football. I mean, they're paying Signetti $15 million a year. So apparently,
well, that's it, Mick. So. He is a Harbaugh. So you have to remember that Harbaughs don't take vacations; they're just football addicts. So I think I don't think he'll waste much time. I don't think a beach in Cancun is his thing.
If it was a month ago, we could have got the Michigan job, which would have been even more interesting. But then Michigan, after everything that happened, it's probably hard to do that. This is actually, Mark, a really... Sorry,
you're right though to say that, to take a year off, because as a Cardinals fan, like I said, every single team with an opening right now absolutely wants them. It's crazy when that came, because I could have asked Jason at the start of this pod, who would you want otherwise? But the smartest thing is to sit back and a really good team. And maybe that's the Chiefs. Maybe next year they're like, no, we're lifeless now with Andy Reid. It's the same thing that happened in Philadelphia. He's a great coach. But, it's the lining up of him that could be super intriguing next year if he doesn't play with a team that, it's the Ravens this year, but it could be any number of other teams next year that are we are on the brink and we just need to go over the edge, and Harbaugh is waiting in the wings, versus going to a team like you've said, Raiders, Giants, Cardinals are a complete rebuild, and because they have a top 5 pick, that's enough to sell the man. I don't know about that.
Yeah, the whole draft situation next year is very interesting. Obviously, with the college football world at the minute, probably not a quarterback-heavy draft in terms of talent. On that, before we kick off the NFL talk here, it is relevant to this podcast. Do check out our podcast for the College Football Playoff National Championship. The semi-finals before the National Championship. It's happening Thursday, Friday. And then the lads are out, Darren Conlon are out in Miami from Tuesday. That's a big, big week next week. Unbelievable. Very jealous. That's going to be class. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you two lads for your college football picks or who do you think is going to win the national championship. But the reason that I'm saying check it out, folks, is because, at least 2 players that we're talking about here on this podcast will be drafted in the top 3 easily, and it will impact your team. Also, it took 2 minutes and 50 seconds to mention the Arizona Cardinals, which in a wildcard week is beyond me. So let's just kick it off.
We also named 10 other teams. Just
I know, but still,
I was actually looking at our little thing there for the teams that we mentioned throughout the year, and it's funny now. I was thinking it's actually Rich Michael calling us out on mentioning our team, just because it's been so easy to talk about the Denver Broncos this year. This will be the 1 week off that we don't have to talk about the Broncos because they are the number 1 seed. How did you feel about that?
We'll talk about it next week.
Oh, the confidence off this man over here.
I can tell you now, and we'll talk about it next week. There's no confidence. Anybody that actually sits down and watches tape and watches off, I mean, it's a fantastic situation, but definitely not confident. And we will talk about it tonight. This is not like a pick show, but certainly there'll be opportunities because there's such less games to maybe give an opinion on who you think is going to win the game, and I definitely think there's going to be a few surprises this weekend, and I think there will be next weekend as well. I think it's one of the most, and this is where I was trying to come into it. This is one of the most open seasons probably ever. It's the most open season that we've had since covering the sport. And for people watching, for people listening in, you're obviously very, very welcome. Kicks off Saturday night, 9:30, Rams at the Panthers. Saturday Night Football is the last Amazon game of the year. It's an absolute doozy in an NFC North matchup between the Bears and the Packers. Sunday sees a game which is actually on Virgin Media 2 if you're in the Republic. It is on Channel 5 up north as well. The Bills and the Jags, 9:30, 49ers Eagles. Sunday Night Football is the Chargers against the Patriots, and Monday Night Football is the Texans against the Steelers. But it really, really is one of those seasons where you just don't know where it's going to go. And obviously, Mark mentioned there as well, Seahawks are the NFC champions in terms of the regular season. They have the number one seed, and the Broncos as well. And thanks to everybody that's jumped on and contributed, whether it's posts or podcasts over the last couple of weeks. I think the content has just been at an absolute top tier scale. So thanks to everybody, and thank you to my wife for making me a cup of tea as well. I really, really appreciate that. Mark, what's the first game that we're going to get into here, lad?
Here I'm gonna so we are going to go through each of the games. There's 6 games this weekend. We are going to go through each of them, but I'm going to give you a bit of a swerve, and if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. But we didn't. I suppose in other years we've kind of done more featurey kind of topics and said, oh, X and Y, and if you could give a team. But I've just because you said about the Broncos there, I have been thinking about this week. If you were to give me certain aspects from the playoffs, so for instance, the scariest pass rush for me would be the Texans. The most well-rounded team for me is the LA Rams. Probably the most well-rounded team is going to be in the AFC is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would say I don't know if the word is superlative. I know that's like a real preseason word, but for the Denver Broncos, I definitely think the X factor that Sean Payton brings is one of them. Is there anything that you have, Jason, that like, oh, this team means X to me, or this team has the fiercest Y?
I think it's an interesting year because of how many elite defenses are there, and the fact that we've got the Seahawks and the Broncos as those number one seeds really riding their elite defenses. Great article by, I know, Guy, you're a fan of, Mark, Ben Solak, about this whole myth that defense wins championships, which is a myth statistically because elite offenses are much more likely to make Super Bowls and to win Super Bowls. But it is an interesting year from that perspective. You've got the Texans in the mix as well. Between those three guys, they are 3 elite defenses, and that's really decided the ball that's carried those teams this far. So for 2 of them to have a bye week, and it's just an interesting prospect to see. Could see some low scoring games this playoffs, and by God, if 2 of those teams face off in the Super Bowl, we could be looking at 3-3 or some historic low score.
Do you know another thing that stands out to me? It's only because you mentioned the defensive mindedness. It's the whole rookie contract or quarterback on a below market value contract. Like when I just quickly skim the games beneath us, obviously Bryce Young with the Panthers is there. Caleb Williams with the Bears. You can throw in with not San Francisco anymore, but kind of with Brock Purdy. You can throw in Drake May absolutely for the New England Patriots. You can throw in with Houston as well. And I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is on, but I don't think it's going to be. It is that teams were
10 million.
Is that so? It's like teams were able to build around, and the most expensive defense, and look where that's going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I do think that it goes to show the importance of taking advantage of those things too. Michael, do you have any? Again, it's not something that we set up, but it's just something that's we're not looking at it this year specifically. But
I think what we're doing tonight is probably, and across this weekend, is probably the best way to do it. I do like the conversation that you're having in regards to the contracts. I think just really the fact that it's the first postseason where we're going to have a Super Bowl champion or a quarterback in the Super Bowl. It's not Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or Joe Burrow or Matthew Stafford. I had a great stat in my head about Mark Sanchez and it's disappeared. If anybody's seen that joke, it's out there. Please find it. It's like the first postseason without these 3 quarterbacks since 2008. And the replies were hilarious. I just think it's the openness, Mark. I think it's the fact that I don't think anybody can sit here and genuinely put their head down and say, yeah, this team's going to be in the Super Bowl. Like, nobody has a clue. Nobody has an absolute notion. And on the subject of not knowing, if you don't know or if you feel like you do know, we are presented by SBK. I should have given them a shout out earlier on. Obviously, there's loads of different odds across the weekend for every game, not just that, but including the college football semi-finals as well. Check out the link in the bio. 18 plus. Please be gamble aware. It is sportsbook only, and there are going to be. I've asked for some specific specials for certain players, including the guy we'll talk about later on, DK Metcalf. I expect him to score a touchdown on Monday night, and I've asked for enhanced specials. So leave that with me on that there, folks. Does anybody else want to add anything else? We are, I guess we're 4 weeks on Thursday away from the Super Bowl. Just a reminder, next week for us, well, how it's actually being on the screen is the mini Super Bowl week with Miami, with the guys. So best luck to them. Then we're obviously out marked from the 30th, 31st in San Francisco. So it's a massive few weeks, and appreciate everybody's support.
Yeah, dead on. So the first game, so we are going to go through them almost like the schedule goes. Just it makes it easier, I suppose, for people listening back. If you are listening to this on a Saturday, you can skip right through, and we'll have Sunday's games coming up. But we are actually going to skip the first game, which will be the Rams at the Panthers. Jason, you're going to look at that in a second. But Michael, the Packers at the Bears, certainly on paper, the NFC North matchup is definitely exciting, and it's cool to see it happen in the postseason, even though we've seen it twice already this year.
Yeah, it is. Obviously one of the most storied, two of the most storied franchises in the NFL, like in terms of their history and in terms of, frankly, how much they hate each other is one aspect of it for a start. But to see not just this game happen in the playoffs, but to really see the renaissance of the Chicago Bears over the last year with Ben Johnson is another really intriguing factor in this game. If I focus on the Packers, I haven't got any notes on this guy, but I do want to just very, very quickly mention it. Dan Whelan last week for the Green Bay Packers, albeit in a very, very interesting game for them where they did not win. It's a situation where I think he had 8 punts in week 18. He was one away from the single game team record for Green Bay. No Irishman has ever got past the NFC Championship game in an NFL playoff run, bar Neil O'Donoghue in, I think, 1979, I think the year was, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So there is a pathway there for Dan to make a bit of history. He's obviously the first Irish player in the playoffs. He was there last year as well, obviously, but it's good to have him in there. First one in a very, very long time. I think for Packers fans listening, and Dara's probably getting his ears bleeding out on the flight to Miami here after they've probably won this weekend or whatever. But 2 years ago, the Packers won in Dallas, and a reminder for people that they were the number 7 seed then. They are the lower seed now as well. They are in the road trip to end defeat as the top seed. They nearly took the Niners out. After that, they didn't. The Niners obviously went through it, reached the Super Bowl. And then last year, the Packers went out at the 2nd seed Eagles in the first round. And the Eagles went on to the Super Bowl, obviously winning the Lombardi Trophy. Didn't happen with the Niners. It's hard to know that when you've that many injuries and you have that many things going on and so many different question marks around this team, you have to ask yourself how exactly can Green Bay go into Soldier Field and actually win this game? Because for a lot of Bears fans, it's so important for people to actually understand this. This is easily the biggest Bears game in 10, 15 years. And it's certainly the biggest game of Caleb Williams' career to date. And I think the crowd, the atmosphere, hell, the players in the field in Soldier Field is going to be absolutely electric. And, if you look at exactly where they are and what they need to get to, the Packers, for me, really need to dominate in terms of takeaways. Green Bay's defense is wouldn't be great at the moment in regards to it, whereas the Bears are absolutely fantastic on it. If they can tip a pass, they usually come down, they usually catch the ball, they usually get the ball away. If Green Bay does, they usually drop that ball. So, as important as takeaways are in this game, I think, if the Green Bay if the Packers are able to try and get to Williams, force him under pressure, and maybe if the pass isn't thrown correctly, try and find a way to get the ball and try and cut the time of possession for the Bears on the field. Green Bay took really, really good care of the ball whenever Jordan Love is under center, usually, but I think they've only turned the ball under once in terms of the game before the season, so there is a way of actually getting them to do it. But the biggest thing for me, I actually think that this game is going to be very, very tight across both offenses and both defenses, and I think we're going to be sitting with about 4 to 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. with the Packers and the Bears, maybe like a score in between them. But I think the biggest thing from watching Green Bay, not just this year, but in terms of those two playoff games that I mentioned last year as well, obviously they're a little bit more decimated this year to an extent in terms of the experience that they have. But the results are the results. You expect that Green Bay needs to find a way to finish a game. The Packers have, across 2 games this season, if you actually go sit down and watch the tape, they have pretty much not dominated, but they have definitely bossed the games that they've played, and albeit I think they've won one, Chicago won the other. They have bossed those games. They cannot seem to find a way to finish. That game just before Christmas in Chicago, the Packers were the better team for nigh on the vast majority of the game, but they completely collapsed. So how exactly can they go in this week and try and learn? Run the ball, get the ball down the field, and if it doesn't work, punt the ball. You've got one of the best X factors. Sorry, you got one of the best X factors in the league in Dan Whelan. If they're sitting at the 51, 52-yard line on a cold, windy night in Chicago, or if they're sitting just before the halfway point, punt the ball. Whelan, get it inside the 5. I think Whelan's going to be a massive factor in this game. But the Packers have an unbelievable opportunity, because at the end of the day, if they win on Saturday night / Sunday morning for us, that one person is going to remember that they were the lower seed coming into this. And for the Bears, this is a massive banana skin game. And I believe, Mark, are you going to talk about that?
Yeah, it's funny you're kind of referencing there at the end that it's in Chicago and stuff. And I kind of looked there last week, and the moment has kind of gotten to the Bears as well. Yeah, I guess it's something I'll touch on now, because I was kind of thinking of it as like, these are two teams that can, on their day, have amazing offenses, but poor defenses. And I mean, I'll get to the defense side of things for the Chicago Bears. I know they're turnover machines, but like we already know, the Green Bay Packers are completely averse to throwing a turnover. So I think it nullifies it somewhat that they won't be able to get the ball. But yeah, you mentioned it there. We saw the game so recently play out, the Bears versus the Packers. And so as you look, glass half full versus half empty, of course, Chicago did win the game in overtime, but the Bears were down 10 points with under 4 minutes to go. They had 6 points on the board at that stage. Despite some solid decision-making, Caleb Williams started 10 of 21 because he's so risk-averse. They needed an onside kick recovery to force overtime. The Packers botched a handover on 4th and 1 inside Bears territory to give them the ball. But then if you want to look at the positives, how does that game end? But one of the most immaculate throws of the season and a brilliant play call from Ben Johnson, 46-yard touchdown to DJ Moore. And that brings you to kind of Caleb Williams specifically. I mean, it's been a hugely positive year for Caleb Williams. He's realizing that number one overall selection and why he was that. The physical tools, his scrambling ability now is just like gone to another level. His athleticism, the decision making in particular, is just really, really smart. And I point out these things because I think in year one of this scheme, it's been amazing and the offense is hitting huge strides. But I think it really is that it's version 1 and there is room for growth. In that same game, 10 flags for 100 yards. I suppose if you want to really sum it up, they've been fortunate, definitely, but also resilient. They were fortunate with those things that I said were glass half empty, but they were able to turn it into wins. So I can see them at their absolute best, and we've seen massive moments out of them besting this Packers defense. But on the other side of the ball, it's whether the Packers offense is going to lose the game then, because it was Malik Willis in for an injured Jordan Love for most of that game the last day. And again, you have to force overtime when you should be able to dominate. That the Packers on their day, I think, tipped the scales for me versus the Bears on that day. But it's that the Bears have their day more often than the Packers. And that's why I hope that the reins come off. But I've been saying that all season with the Packers, but he was watching something or his phone just went off. I've been saying that all year with the Green Bay Packers, that like they were my Super Bowl pick before the season, but like the defense now, that was their calling card. Now, text Dara the day before Micah Parsons got injured and he was like, no, we're fine, Quay Walker and all this kind of stuff. The day Micah Parsons goes down, the next day I should say, I text Dara the exact same thing. He goes, oh shit, this isn't good. Like,
are you disappointed, Mark, how they've like handled that? Because I think they've got on 0-4 since that injury now. Look at some other teams around the league, like the 49ers I'm going to talk about a bit later. They'll drop Nick Bosa in week 3. It does seem like the wheels have just come off as soon as one guy goes down. And he's a player who's they didn't come into the season with him. He joined 3 or 4 weeks in.
Yeah, and they had a fantastic defense before, but it was supposed to put them over the edge. But in the build up to that injury, the week of that, I remember saying to you, I think it was just you and me on the podcast, but I was like, just double or triple team Micah Parsons, because no one was getting any pressure, and it was helping out. Like, he had such an impact on that defense, it was outrageous. So am I surprised, I suppose, should be the question at 0-4? No, because that he, like, that's why he went out and got him. Like, he did so much. He freed up so much talent for you that as soon as teams no longer had to look at him, it was like, it kind of reminds me almost of the Steelers playing against Myles Garrett. They're like, we'll just defend against him. And that's how you should have done it all along. Yeah, it gives up resources, but when an offense is so clearly centered around one player, taking them out of the game makes a big difference. So when teams don't have to take them out, I thought it was like a 2-person swing. You suddenly, instead of being shorthanded, playing 9 players against 11 or 9 players versus 10 on defense, teams are now suddenly at their full plethora, 11 players versus 11. So I'm not surprised at all that that's how it's gone.
Just in terms, just to add on quickly, yeah, sorry, I was putting the this broadcast out to the masses and the volume button was on, so apologies, lads, and apologies to people on the podcast if you can hear it after the edit, after the cut. On the Bears, for people wondering about Caleb Williams, most people probably aware, former Heisman Trophy winner, AP College Football Player of the Year. His alma mater, his team didn't win the national, they didn't get into the playoffs, for example, right? So just he was Oklahoma, but he wasn't starting. So he has not been under this situation before in terms of, I know it's a different situation completely, but he hasn't been under this pressure where it's win or die. Doesn't matter what the hell your record is, it's 0-0 this season. And then finally, as well as that, on before Jason drops in here, at the time of recording, there seems to be more teams than jobs available interested in Mr. Harborough. I think LaFleur's arse is on the line if he doesn't win on Saturday night, personally.
Oh, I don't know. I kind of see where you come from, but I suppose I do see the Packers win this game. I actually don't have the line down in front of me now, but I think that it could be kind of like it's a high-scoring game because the defenses allow points to both sides, and it's kind of like the Lions getting knocked out of the playoffs there, whatever it was, 2 or 3 years ago, that whoever loses feels good about themselves and a bit hard done by, and then there's serious growth there for next year. And I think that storyline certainly suits the Chicago Bears, because I don't see them right now as a Super Bowl contender. Again, anything can happen in the playoffs, but it's almost like if they can lose a close game to the Packers, then there's going to be serious belief. That's obviously a really passionate fan base, and it almost suits this. No, we are yards away from competing for a Super Bowl, whereas right now I don't think they're actually there, but they'll start to believe that if they're able to keep this one close.
But Jason, if they lose against the Packers at home, when everyone's watching it, I think they might as well have just tanked the whole season. I think they'll be devastated. Genuinely.
It will hurt.
If you ask any Bears fans, if you went up to a Bears fan right now in Chicago or Dublin or whatever, they'll tell you we're going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, 100%. But that's everyone in the playoffs. That's everyone in the playoffs. But again, those same Bears fans, they thought they were going to lose in overtime only a couple of weeks ago, and that loss handed them the number 3 seed. They're coming off a loss to the Lions as well, just only the other day, and that was with the number 2 seed on the line. So it's just because you have belief, every fan has belief, but they have, and again, on their day, the offense has been great, but I think that the defense is going to struggle when they're not able to get turnovers against the Packers, because the Packers won't give them up, and those turnovers have been field changers for the Bears all year.
I wish I had the exact stat, but I don't. But they're 1-1. If the Bears win, they haven't beaten the Packers twice in a season since mid noughties or something around that. So it's been a long time, and Packers have owned them for so long. I think it will hurt. If any other team knocking them out, I think the average Bears fan would feel more positive about the season. But if it happens to be the Packers, especially on the form that the Packers are on, that will sting. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
Right, Mark, will we get Jason to give his opinion on the Rams against the Panthers before we move on? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, sounds good.
Great game, by the way.
Of all the games we're going to talk about. Sorry?
Game of the week.
I was just going to say, of all the games we're going to talk about, this is the game we should spend the most amount of time on. No,
not at all. Hold on, just because the Panthers could still be in the playoffs and the Bears might not be on or the Eagles
Absolutely.
on Monday morning. You know, like it's.
But
like,
this is the thing. It's like we're talking about. Like I put into our group chat the other day, the Packers are the most high and low team in the NFL, apart from the Carolina Panthers. When Bryce Young, sorry, I don't know. Like I was actually listening to Mina Kimes the other day, and she said like it's just the waxing phase of the moon is when Bryce Young will show up, and like no one knows when it's going to happen, but it happens. But that's why the Carolina Panthers now. I don't believe like the LA Rams are a hot Super Bowl favorite right now, but we do not know, Jason, what Carolina Panthers team is going to show up.
8-9 though. I mean, 8 to get to the playoffs with 8 wins in a 17-game season is vomit-inducing.
You take it.
They'll take it, and I'm one of those pro divisional people. By the way, I'm not this whole kind of open conference better record gets home field. I love the fact that an 8-9 Panthers team is hosting a 12-5 Rams team this weekend. I think that's just a unique thing about divisions that I hope never goes away.
But Jason, you say that as though they didn't just lose the Bucks and have to get help to just solidify their place in the play. Like that's what's sick about the whole thing. Like no one wanted to win that division. It's insane.
That's one of the most concerning things. There's a lot of concerns, don't get me wrong, about this Panthers team, but they've gone 0-2 in the last 2 games in must-win, control their own destiny type games, and that's what they've done. So I am massively concerned going into the playoffs, full stop, just in terms of getting a win when it matters, rather than catching a team off guard, which is what they've done time and time again this season, including the Rams. Because the Panthers did beat the Rams a couple of months ago. It feels like a lifetime ago now, but they did get the better of them that day, and it was a fantastic performance. And you say Bryce Young shows up every now and then. That was one of the games he showed up, and it's great to watch when he does show up, because kind of like Caleb Williams, he gets it done when it matters. 12 of Bryce Young's 14 career wins have involved game-winning drives. So maybe it's a product of playing for Alabama and getting all that nice experience, but he doesn't feel pressure, and he will be someone who can cope with this playoff type atmosphere, I'm sure. Maybe starting first on the Rams offense versus Panthers defense side of the ball. What went right for the Panthers last time? Turnovers was a big part of it. They intercepted Matthew Stafford twice in that game, including a pick 6 by Mike Johnson, and they sealed the game with a Derek Brown strip sack that time. What else did they do to slow this Rams offense, which we know how good they can be? They kept Puka Nacua to 72 yards in that game. And I mean, it's a decent game for most people, but when you're Puka Nacua, he's averaged 139 yards in the 5 games since that Panthers loss. And he's had 6 touchdowns in the last 5 games. So, we've seen how hot he's been. The Panthers somehow slowed him. They didn't stop him completely, but they slowed him. They're going to have to figure out a way to do that again somehow this week. Big boost for the Rams offense as well. Devontae Adams is back, and Matthew Stafford, of course. I think he's the MVP personally, but that's a conversation for another day. On the Panthers, on the other side of the ball, Panthers offense, Rams defense. Again, I really just focusing on that previous Panthers Rams encounter, because that's going to be the recipe here if they can get it done again. That day they had a very balanced attack, and that's when the Panthers offense functions to its potential, and that's when Bryce Young functions to its potential. They ran the ball 40 times that game for 164 yards. It's only 4 yards a carry, but even yardage total aside, the beauty of an attack like that in one of these games is that you're keeping the Rams offense off the field, and you're preventing the likes of Matthew Stafford from getting in rhythm and doing what we know he can do. So rushing attack is crucial. It wasn't there last week against the Bucks. That was one of the biggest reasons they lost that game. Rico Dowdle and Hubbard had 10 yards apiece, and the team finished with 19 yards total in that game against the Bucks. So they had nothing going there, and we saw what happened. So they simply can't afford that against Stafford. They won't get away with a performance like that, and the game won't be any bit close unless they can get 4 yards per carry at a minimum. There are positives from Bryce Young. Even last week against the Bucks, we saw some nice drives there, and he does move the ball. I'm almost pleasantly surprised every time I see them move the ball and get a couple of touchdowns, because it just goes suddenly from looking like impossible to gain 10 yards to just executing multiple 20, 15-yard passes in a row. So it does come in waves with this Panthers team, and do I fancy their chances against the Rams defense? We know how good the likes of Jared Verse and Kobe Turner are along that D line. They don't have to blitz opposition offenses. They can get to them just by rushing their front four. They did that last week against Arizona. A 60% pressure rate in that game, which was the 5th most of any game in the league this year. And when they can make a quarterback's life difficult and get to him quickly, while still having 7 guys in coverage, that's not something that this Panthers team is equipped to deal with. Again, 8 wins. Let's call it out for what it is. This is a very average team in the Panthers. They caught the Rams off guard a few weeks ago. But if you look both sides of the ball, top to bottom, this Rams team is a lot better. I'll be absolutely shocked if they let that happen again. They'll have to takeaways and 4th down conversions. Those kind of wacky things are going to happen for the Panthers to win. Because if a straight up football matchup, there's a clear winner here for me.
There is, and it's just happened. There's been breaking news as you've literally talked there now. Cam Newton's on the drum to kick it off. First time he's been at the stadium, I believe, in that capacity since 2016 in a playoff game. You can say what you want there. That atmosphere is going to be great. They're going to be ready for it. I think the Rams, I think this game's over at halftime.
10.5
which is not easy.
points. I'm just pulling up on SBK right now because I don't have the spread. It's 10.5 points for that. When you look across the rest of the games this weekend, 1.5, 1 point. So 1 point for the Packers Bears, 1.5 for the Jags Bills, 4 points for the Eagles. Like, it is just such an outlier. They often say it'll be we often say the divisional round games are always the most competitive. But this wild card, except for this absolute, as I call it, outlier, is actually really, really, really close. Michael, do you want to jump on anything that Jason said, or will I talk about one of those other games?
I was going to say, again, we're pretty chilled here. I think people listening to this know it as well. Could we end this audio part because it's Saturday only, and then you go into the quick hit for the second one for the next, to keep it all on the Sunday, or what do you want to do for people listening in the car?
If you think so, we'll do that.
Okay, watch this. I probably should have said this as well. Actually, this is not going to be the pocket. Yeah, Mark. Let's see the crack. Keep following us. Keep listening in. Pro Football Ireland's Wildcard Week podcast. I don't know what week it is. Michael McQuaid, Mark Hogan, Jason Hez. That was the Saturday games. We're looking ahead to the Sunday games on an absolutely, completely crazy divisional round schedule, wildcard round schedule. Jesus, I need a cup of coffee, lads. Mark, there is a game on Virgin Media 2 this weekend, 6 o'clock. Bills, Jags, games on Channel 5 as well. I don't believe Channel 5 have a late game, which is not good if you haven't got a cable TV subscription. I'll leave that there and not say anything else. Mark, good to see you again, lad. You're going to go into you're going to focus on this Bills Jags game for us, yeah? This is one of the games of the week. I can't believe we're not doing a roundtable discussion on this, by the way. That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, you were the man that picked the games.
I'm joking.
A text written out, and I was going to be like, I should really bang the table here, but I was like, do you know what? No, pause. I'll just take this game.
It is Hogan's fault, folks. It is Hogan's fault in terms of why Eagles-Niners is not in Virgin. Hogan said no and said it has to be Bills.
Hey, here, look. Speaking of Virgin Media, Michael, you said it there. Bills versus Jaguars live on Virgin Media, 6 o'clock Sunday, free to air NFL. Absolutely love to see it. Last time, though, we saw the Jags on Virgin Media. Dave McIntyre and Michael was in studio besides himself, describing how poor and let down he was with Trevor Lawrence. Of course, it was one of Trevor Lawrence's, if not the worst game of his career. How times have changed since then. 9-1 the team has gone, including 2-1 against playoff teams. Trevor Lawrence playing absolutely like the talent that he's always been billed as, and they're the only team that ranks top 10 in both offensive and defensive DVOA. In other words, you're comfortable if you see them on either side of the ball. They're the most balanced team in the AFC, and really, really importantly, it's gone scorching hot at the right time. And why is all that important? I'm going to have to hear from you guys. In a year where the Bills came in as Super Bowl favorites, I have them losing in the wild card round against the Jags.
No, I'm sorry here. I'm not even going to go into the whole mumbo jumbo, stat wise percentages and stuff. Jags have been great. The Jags are putting points up on the board, but if I'm correct, the Jags have played the Jets and the Titans in the last 4 weeks. So, okay, yeah, great. Like, I mean,
and you know, you're right about that, because I point out they were 2-1 against playoff teams. They got one against the Chargers, they got one against the Broncos. They lost to the Texans, which is fine. But one of the things that I actually asked them a few weeks ago, again, this might have just been the podcast that I did with Jason, was I said, I want to see some players stand up and become stars. And stars are definitely made in the playoffs, but they have some guys coming in hot that, a bit like Jalen Carter, who I think I'll mention later on, a bit like Jalen Carter for the Eagles, became a star last year, even though he was billed first round pick. I think that there's guys that have gotten hot right now. Josh Hines-Allen at pass rush has absolutely broken out. Like I said, Trevor Lawrence is absolutely playing there. Kicker Cam Little is an absolute X factor. 67-yarder last week, didn't best his 68-yard all-time record, and the 70-yard kick that he had in the preseason as well. What a safety blanket it is to have him. And then you have so many wide receivers there that are on the brink of breaking out, that they have the weapons there. And it's like, these questions that we asked them to stand up with, they've gone and answered them. And like I said there, I just think it's so important to be doing it this time of year. And why is it important? Not only because of they've shown the ability, but the confidence that gives you. The vibes in Jacksonville right now are absolutely outrageous. Talk about carefree football from them, but ahead of schedule, they can just go and lean into the buzz from blowing up and proving all the doubters wrong, yourself and myself included. We went on TV and we said how disappointed we were, so maybe we were bulletin board material. But getting Trevor Lawrence the grill, did you see that? The players got him a grill after there was a meme of him wearing one. The players went and got him a grill, and I was like, this is big trust in Baltimore level vibes. Or it's maybe the underdog story with Jason Kelsey wearing it during the parade afterwards, wearing the underdog hat. I think like it's literally that level. I know all the cliches, playing with house money and stuff, but like, they're after getting a first-year head coach and going from a 13-loss team to a 13-win team. They are playing, you know, like that, the confidence that gives you versus the pressure that is on Buffalo. Like I said, come into the year a Super Bowl favorite. Everything's been put on Josh Allen's shoulders. And look, partly it is being literally put on his shoulders. When we saw them playing Philadelphia a few weeks back, they came out looking, Buffalo did, a different team because they just were afraid of running the ball. It led to spots where you could definitely feel like it was just on Josh Allen to create. He was hobbled, got sacked 5 times. That's the second most this year. The rushing champ, James Cook, only rushed for under 4 yards a play, one of his worst of the season. The first 8 drives in that Eagles game for the Bills, 6 punts, a fumble, and a turnover. And I just think we're going to see a similar game because this is the number 1 rushing team versus the number 1 team defending the run in the Jaguars. If you are able to take out the run game for the Buffalo Bills, it completely collapses the offense. And I think the game is right there for them. I think absolutely the one thing with the Buffalo Bills is matchups. And if you have to if you are able to remove their run offense from the game, they completely fall apart. And I think that goes massively in Jacksonville's favor. Massively, Michael.
I think, and Jason, feel free to jump in on this. I just think you can't really define or take away destiny in the Buffalo Bills. If you really believe this is the year for the Bills, if you really believe this is the year for Josh Allen, none of that's going to matter. It's 0-0 in the playoffs. Jags have done extremely well, especially in such a short time in terms of bringing new guys into the building, not just players, but management, obviously the new HC, the new GM as well. They've been very, very impressive towards the end of the season. But Jason, you get a week off. Josh Allen was in for 20 seconds on Sunday last week. Rejuvenated run game. Allen will want this more than anything. I just don't see a scenario where the Buffalo Bills. I'm so excited to see them on the road here at this. Like, I know they've been on the road in the playoffs before, but wildcard weekend on the road, up against it. Let's go, man. Like, if this is the year they're going to do it, Jason, I think this is going to be fun to watch. I think it'll be a tight enough game, but the Bills got on top, 100%. I'm not saying it's my lock of the week, but I like Josh Allen to have a phenom of a game in this game, 100%.
But to who, Michael?
Yeah,
where does he, but this is the thing, it's like he was tasked in that Philadelphia game with doing it himself, and that's what I'm saying. When you look at the drives, like they had 6 punts out of the first 8 drives. They do eventually, you're right, they ended up going 2 touchdowns the final 2 drives, and they lose the game because they said instead of going to overtime, they go for the 2-point play, but the 2-point play was blown up because it was a throwing play. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's fantastic to put, stock in Josh Allen. He is unreal, but he in times has become their whole offense. And that's absolutely going to be exacerbated by a team that's so strong and stout against the run, the number one in the NFL, that I just think that's frightening for the Buffalo Bills. It's their Achilles heel. I think against another team, they were able to get a win this week, but the one matchup they didn't want was to pull this one.
I agree with everything you're saying, Mark, but I'm kind of leaning the way of Michael in terms of how this one's actually going to pan out. And I've been saying the exact same as you all season, that it goes through James Cook first for this Bills offense. And it used to be kind of, we need to establish a run game to be balanced. And then it got to a point where now we need to run because we can't move the ball if we're not running properly. But Allen has still had some of those games throughout the season. I just really think he flips a switch in the playoffs. And I completely agree, he's lacking weapons. But that hasn't stopped him at times this year. And with all due respect to the Jags D, which is a very good D, and the run defense is solid in particular, I think what the Eagles did a couple of weeks ago, I like that unit more in terms of slowing down a passing attack, and they've managed to shut down some big offenses throughout the year. I don't look at this Jags defense as being on the same level, and I think it's something that Allen can get to and have one of those games. I'm kind of on Michael's romanticized kind of view of the playoffs. Magic happens in the playoffs, and sometimes these kind of more emotional factors do actually play a part. We've seen it year in, year out. The Brady effect, the Mahomes effect. I think Josh Allen deserves to be in that same bucket.
When will he ever have a better chance?
Taking up a notch when they need to.
I wonder.
He's never going to have a better chance.
Yeah, he won't have a better chance, but I suppose that's the thing. It's like he won't have a better chance, but they themselves are weakened, the Buffalo Bills, and he literally is weakened with that is the right ankle that I don't know, did he practice? He might have missed the practice. Anyway, I'm seeing Schefter having to put out Josh Allen injury updates, which I don't think helps them.
Time will tell.
Final point just on the Jag side, because Ben Johnson gets talked about a lot, as does Liam Cohen, but I would argue what Liam Cohen's done with that offense down the second half of the season. We saw how bad they were in London, but it really seems like what Liam Cohen's done to the offense. And Trevor Lawrence, he's been MVP caliber these last 8 games. So credit to him. As much as those two coaches are talked about, I'm giving the nod to Liam Cohen if it's a Liam Cohen versus Ben Johnson debate on this season.
Let's jump into this. That's going to be an absolute doozy of a game. Virgin Media 2, 6 o'clock on Sunday. Mark is presenting it. Excited to see it. Mark, all the best with
that. So the Bills actually just double checked it there, are 1.5 point favorites. The Jags originally, I think, had been a point favorite. So I do think they had been a half point favorite, which is interesting. No, unfortunately, I'm not presenting it, but it is, jokes aside, fantastic to have that on free to air TV. Introduced
should be like that every week.
Yeah, shouldn't it
be like that every week? And there's non-controversial saying that if you have a TV deal across the UK, which includes Northern Ireland, with a channel where you have a game every week, hopefully we can find a way to have that across the whole island from next season, even if it's the same game as Channel 5. I don't care. Just get a game on TV.
But hey, maybe take the time to not turn it on, but instead go to Twitter and tweet Virgin Media and say Mark Hogan and Michael McQuaid and Jason Hayes should be on the podcast.
We'll see. We will see. Virgin have Super Bowl 60, February the 8th. They have a playoff game every week. We don't know what game it is, so leave it with us. I would speculate that it'll be 6 o'clock every Sunday. We don't know yet. We will come back to you on that. Virgin Media 2 this week. Right. Eagles-Niners is in action. We're going in chronological. I'm liking that we're going in chronological order here, boys. Eagles-Niners is the middle game on the Saturday night. Jason, you are going to look, I believe, at the San Francisco 49ers. And as a man that sat up for the last 2 weeks late and watched that game against Chicago and then watched that game with the black jerseys against Seattle, I don't know what the hell to expect here, but I know one thing. They're going to fight. They're going to find a way to make it work. And it might work, or it might not work, but Jesus Christ, this is a heavyweight matchup because one of these teams is going down and out. And the Niners, on that previous conversation we had, Josh Allen was a Niners fan. The Niners obviously have the potential of a home Super Bowl. They're definitely not going to be home for the next few weeks anyway at this rate.
No, it's a very tough one. And when we caught up on to chat about those Saturday games last weekend, Michael, this was the one matchup from a 49ers perspective that I was hoping they could avoid. Because obviously Eagles are well rested. 49ers just came off a playoff-like atmosphere against Seattle, and it was one of those brutal games against an elite defense. It was not like two offenses going at it. It was a physical game that really will have taken out a lot out of this 49ers team. So to have the prospect now of flying across country and playing a team with the playoff experience that the Eagles have, this is a test. This is, it is a matchup that I didn't want. If you're a glass half full kind of person, they got an extra day's rest because it was a Saturday game last week, so it could have been worse if they were one of the early playoff games. At least they're not on till Sunday. Getting into the specifics, 49ers offense, you summed it up there, Michael. The last 2 weeks have been the most dramatic example of it in terms of their ceiling and their floor, but it has been kind of a theme throughout the season as well, where they've just kind of stumbled for periods at a time, and then they've looked like the hottest offense in the league for periods, which they did for most of December. They averaged 30 points per game in December. And when they're on, it's a joy to watch, and Brock Purdy's worth every cent of that contract. But I think the driving force for almost every, I feel like we're saying this for every offense, but for the 49ers in particular, it's when that run game gets going, that's really just what they're founded on, and that's what's been the driving force for these last few years. When that run game looks solid, it just makes life so much easier all around for a Brock Purdy. And that's not something they had against Seattle. McCaffrey was kept to just 23 yards, and he only had 8 attempts, which is just not what you want at all in terms of running a balanced offense. It's 28 degrees in Philly. Go on,
Jason, can I just jump in there? Because I actually had this on the 49ers run game. Christian McCaffrey is 31st in explosive plays this year, and the 49ers rank second from bottom, ahead of only the Chiefs, in rush plays above 20 yards. They've had 4 all year. I'm sure there's been games in Christian McCaffrey's career that he's gone off for 20 yards 4 times in a single game. They've had 4 all year. So, you're saying the offense is absolutely predicated on that run game being stout, and I suppose they just can't rely on it this year.
Did everybody see the report this morning about the facility? No. They're basically training. They're training beside like an electricity station, and there's been scientific data that's seen that basically it's not good for their bodies, and they're like the worst injury record in the league. And the guy stood outside and all, he's like reading it. This is a true thing. Check it out. But yes, that's a crazy stat in CMC as well.
Who wrote this? It wasn't that Jesse Morton fella.
No, I'll link these up after. Check it out. I started laughing. This is a real thing. If you actually look at the map, Levi's is like the top. The training fields are at the bottom, and to the left, there's an electricity power station. I swear to God. And it's wrecking them apparently. Wrecking their Achilles, everything. This is apparently a real thing. And I'm going to leave it there. Maybe Mark might break his leg again in a few weeks.
Very RFK vibes, but I'll leave it. The run game, to get get us back on track. It's 28 degrees in Philly today, and heavy rain is expected. So some way or another, they're going to have to find out how to get Christian McCaffrey going if they're going to have any success against the Eagles defense, because we saw what Seattle did. It just Purdy, they were just teeing off on him all game, not blitzing anyone, but they were just putting him under duress so much. And this Eagles defense hasn't been at the level they have been maybe last year, but it's still a very deep pass rush, and if they can get hot, I'd be worried as Brock Purdy. For the 49ers defense, very banged up because of that electricity station. Warner obviously is out. Tatum, Bethune, his replacement, is now out for the year with a groin injury as well. So that's a tough blow against Seattle. D. Winters, Luke Gifford. We got I can't think of his name off the top of my head now, but there's a guy signed just last month who had a significant role. He played 40 snaps against Seattle, middle linebacker. Maybe you can find it there, Mark.
Former Vikings player. I cannot think of his name right now.
Yeah, it's escaped me. But it's a massive issue. It's a massive issue. They had 18 missed tackles against Seattle. And again,
Jason, they were dog crap against Seattle. Like that game was hard to watch at times. Like if they turn up anything like that, they're out. I'm not trying to get people not to watch this on Saturday or something like that.
Jason, was it Eric Hendricks?
Yes.
Yeah, so Eric Hendricks, like formerly a great player, but like he's now a practice squad player. Like that's the thing. And I suppose if you want me to jump in and talk about the defense, or you can keep going, Jason. But it's like when you're talking about like they're onto like third string linebackers, like they're in a brutal place.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's showing itself in the stats. I mean, when you hold that Seattle offense to just 13 points last week, you think the defense played better, but really, if you look at the tape of that game, they struggled. And it's it's hard not to blame the injuries. You know, it's Nick Bosa is out, Fred Warner, who's a freak, is out. Talks that he might come back later in the playoffs if they can get that far. This game concerns me from the 49ers perspective. Who's
But it's
talking
almost
Eagles?
it's yeah, cheers to me. Do you know, it's funny, Jason. It's like they've obviously lost talent because they were strong over the last few years and was based around having Warner and having Bosa there, and then these younger guys building around them. But it's like they've lost all the top level depth, and they're now on to second stringers across the board. So where this is the worst offense of the Eagles since Jalen Hurts has been the quarterback, the good news is you can't find a stat that makes this 49ers defense look good. They're just playing to survive. So when you have an Eagles run game that hasn't been good after a historic 2024, it has to look good against a 49ers defense that just plays lighter boxes because they're trying to protect against explosive plays and just swarm a lot more. The lackluster, like you're saying, Seahawks run game was able to move the ball. So what happens if you commit to more Jalen Hurts potentially in the playoffs? I see here Mickey McVay has said that hoping that Kevin Patullo, the offensive coordinator, has been holding back the big plays now, go Birds. And it's like, that's what I'd expect to see, that you have to commit to now Jalen Hurts. So we know he absolutely comes and shines in January. It's a proven thing now. Every playoff comes around and Jalen Hurts is there. I suppose, though, what does that mean for the pass game? Because if there's a non-existent pass rush, you're playing against, or you have some more open field there in front of you, the 49ers are giving up the fifth most explosive plays. So I can just see a lot of throwing wide to Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, just really stressing what's left of that defense, and big plays have to come. But I suppose the winning of this game, like you said, though, Jason, or what you're alluding to, isn't on the offensive side of the ball. Like, absolutely, I would expect a big performance by the Philadelphia Eagles offense. But it really does boil down to it. One of those X factors I was alluding to earlier on is Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan game planning is the strength of the 49ers right now. They have an average run game, like we were saying, but one of the top 5 pass attacks. But it is going up against the Eagles' strength, like you've been saying, Jason. Like, everyone likes this Vic Fangio defense. So one of the funny things when it comes to going against the 49ers and why Kyle Shanahan is so hard to figure out is they use more 21 personnel than anyone else in the league. That's, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 wide receivers, by far the most in the NFL. It's not like they're going to kill you by using it, but it's the fact that you have to prepare for it. So when you look at, say, 11 personnel, which would be the most popular in the NFL, they use that the fourth least. So it's just about your preparation. But who is better at preparing than anyone in the NFL? It's Vic Fangio. Kyle Shanahan went on record a few years back saying that the worst opponent that he has to face, or the most difficult to prepare for, is Vic Fangio, because he's just so smart. So when you see like this week, Trent Williams, the left tackle for the 49ers, is banged up and he's not, as we record this on Wednesday, he's not practicing today. It's like, do we see Fangio does not like the blitz, but do we just see him bringing blitzes early just to test out their offensive line, make them a bit skittish? Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, the big boys of defensive tackles in the middle of the defensive line, I can see them in January again. Just like top to bottom, the Eagles defense are just what I want to see from the Jaguars. Just there's just such household names because they turned it on in January that I'm just fearful for the 49ers. I don't have the line in front of me right now. Really support the 49ers Ireland crew, the 49ers faithful. They're watching it up in Buskers, I think, on Sunday evening. It's just, the Philadelphia Eagles have just been there and done that. And this is definitely one of the weakest 49er sides, just purely through injury, that I'm worried for them.
Time will tell what's going to happen. Like, I guess it's one of those really interesting things where, one set of fans, one team is going to come out of this on Sunday night and be like, Jesus, so, and granted, yes, they've had their issues, both of them, but for the reigning champions against a team that have been pushing and pushing and knocking, and It's at their home stadium this year. One set of fans is going to be very disappointed.
The 49ers, Michael, were so close to getting the number 1 seed in the NFC as well. It'd be wild to see them being knocked out. Yeah, you're not convinced.
That game was very frustrating last week, only because you were sitting at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're going, they're not going to do a thing here. They are not going to do a thing here. Jason, we talked about it on Sunday morning. Like, I wasn't saying bring Mac Jones in, but it was frustrating because it was like they get all the way down to the 10-yard line and then suddenly the balls give up and you're like, Jesus, this game's over. But Seattle were superb. We actually got a question on Seattle. We'll answer it towards the end. But Seattle were absolutely superb last week and they were by far the better team in Levi's. I would question what they'll be like down the stretch. Believe there's a scenario here where what if there is a scenario here? If the Niners won this game, they could play Seattle on the road next week. Am I correct? If different things go different ways,
yeah, because they're six seeds. So if Panthers are gone, I think it'll be Niners Seahawks, won't it?
Yeah. So time will tell what happens. But yeah, it's one of those things. Will I quickly jump on the Patriots Chargers, or has anybody else anything to say?
No, just speaking of bulletin board material, I can guarantee that the message in the 49ers locker room this week will be the fact that the Eagles rested their starters last week, knowing that it will likely put them against the 49ers. So Eagles played to play the 49ers. So that's motivation, if you ask me, and that's going to have them very riled up in that locker room.
If you have any questions, put them in and we'll answer them after we look.
Do you know what? I'll actually say, because that's interesting, Jason. A few weeks ago, I said on the podcast, what would you rather do? Win the NFC West and have the number 1 seed and have to play the lower seed? So basically, I'm actually teeing up the fact that the Rams are playing the Panthers as the 5th seed. But then I suppose then the Rams would likely play the Seahawks next week. So actually, you've lost home field advantage there. Because if I'm saying that maybe
if the Eagles and the Rams win, yes, it's the Rams against the Eagles. Or sorry, the Rams against the Seahawks.
Okay, so you've given up home field advantage by coming the 5th seed versus okay.
Which is interesting. Let's jump on this Patriots Chargers game and nightcap Sunday Night Football. Do you know what? It's a mad few nights. You got Thursday night, Friday night with the college football, Saturday night with the NFL, Sunday night with the NFL, Monday night with the NFL. What a time of the year, man. It's going to be good. And this Patriots Chargers game, 1 o'clock Monday morning / Sunday night is going to be an absolute doozy. I'm really interested in a second to hear what you lads think of this game, but you'll hear it coming into the weekend in terms of myself and Jeff previewing this game and Jeff giving his pick for this game. He identified this game as probably the biggest banana skin of them all for either team, especially more in terms of the Patriots. We know how good both teams can be, but we've seen week by week this season how good the New England Patriots can be, especially when you've got that efficient run game where you can give it to Ramondre Stevenson, you can give it to a guy, an absolute beast in Trevion Henderson, and we know that they've got a very, very good, consistent pass rush. Now, they're going to go up against quite a depleted Chargers offensive line, which could be a massive, massive key to this game for the Patriots. But for me, and I'm going to get in trouble here now, I'm going to have boys in my DMs on Monday morning, but I'm going to say it. If the Chargers go into this game and just find a way to hammer the Patriots offense, pressure Drake May, force turnovers, they've forced 19 interceptions this year on this Chargers defense. Drake May has had 8 interceptions this year. Find a way to make sure that Drake May is not getting his strong passes, his forward passes where he shows them at a very, very sort of tame speed where it goes to the left or goes to the right and it's very, very hard to actually defend against it. Make him play under pressure consistently over 60 minutes. Get them off the field. And I think this is the biggest opportunity of Justin Herbert's career on Sunday Night Football when the whole country / international world is watching. If Justin Herbert can keep up the pace and find a way to overcome his late season issues in terms of injury and elevate his game, my God, who knows what can happen. The reality is we're going into a situation here where it's 2 teams. One team, obviously, Patriots, has been very, very good in terms of the overall course of the season. They're 5th in points per game. They're very, very strong in 3rd and 4th downs. I've said already how good their run game is. The game, if it was played in paper, would say that this game is like a 30-20 21 or 27-17 or 27-14 win for the Patriots, but there is definitely 100% a window in this for the Chargers to win it. Love the matchup between the head coaches in Vrabel and Harbaugh. Love the turnover battle that could be there. Obviously Chargers were, I think, 10th or 11th in turnover differential, just one spot below the Patriots, so it's quite close in terms of that sense. And I think one thing that could be really, really important to look at towards the end of this game, the kicking situation is absolute clutch for both teams. Cameron Dicker, Andres Borrelguez, two really, really good seasons in terms of what they're able to do. I think this could be one to look at. We've seen it in week 18 with the AFC North. If this game, or hell, if any game goes down to a last minute field goal, what could happen? Why am I taking the Chargers to win this game?
I think the Chargers will really fancy this game. Honestly.
Big time.
Like I in terms of coming in as an underdog, I'm looking at the Patriots' schedule again on the entire season, and to have 14 wins, and you could probably pick one or two that you could really hang your hat on as being impressive. They went 1-1 with the Bills, lost to the Steelers. That kind of one win against the Bills really is the only. Go through that entire schedule, and there's not a single team there you'd say, okay, that's a challenging match. There's not a single playoff team, maybe. I don't think that any of the other wins came against playoff teams. I'd be very concerned. This Patriots team just isn't tested. The last few weeks they've been coasting. I think it's a great opportunity for the Chargers. They're used to these dirty games. They've been, clawing against other teams with their fingernails to try and get some wins down the stretch. Patriots haven't had to do that. This is the playoffs. We're talking playoffs here.
Jason, this blows it open. If they win this game, it blows it open. The 7th seed winning totally blows the whole AFC thing open as well. Mentally. That's why part of me wants it to happen, so just for chaos. But that's, yeah.
See, I really like, there's been so many plays where Drake May rolls out to his right. Like, it's just outrageous how he's able to extend plays and just absolutely put the ball on a dime. Like, yeah, it's probably been my favorite thing watching all year has been Drake May rolling out right. And like but then the whole thing with what Justin Herbert is doing without an O-line is equally as impressive. I just keep on thinking it's going to get caught up to, but it's not like the defense for the Patriots is, anything to be fearful of versus anything that's left in the NFL. I suppose I think that Drake May is playing at the MVP, certainly of the AFC, if you want to put it that way. If Matt Stafford is your MVP, that's where I've been leaning on them. And I actually texted on the other day saying I think that the Patriots are my pick for the AFC right now. So I'm kind of hopeful that it comes off just to save my blushes on that one particular text that no one will know even who I sent it to. But yeah, the Chargers, I mean, they're in great stead considering they looked ropey there for a while.
Whoever wins, we will go into a lot more detail on them next week, if that's okay. But that's the Sunday slate. Rolling on here on Pro Football Ireland's podcast network ahead of the wildcard weekend. We've one more game to look at, and it's a beautiful game on Monday Night Football / Tuesday morning football, where the Houston Texans head to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Michael McQuaid, Mark Hogan, Jason Hayes, and Mark. This is a big game. I mean, what's your strategy for staying up late, getting up early, etc.?
Non-existent. I will do what I did the other day. I will fall asleep watching the game, but I am like everyone else, absolutely. Well, I presume like everyone else, just blown away by the grit from the Pittsburgh Steelers to be able to see out the win the other day. I think they're playing with absolute. I can't believe I'm saying the phrase again. House money. I hate saying that, but it is like, what can Aaron Rodgers do? Because that could have been potentially the last game of his career the other day, and now you're like, no, I just want to see more. It's borrowed time.
It was pure luck. Let's be completely
absolutely
honest.
Pure luck. Absolutely pure luck.
That play before the field goal was great. It was an absolute disgrace. But yes, of course.
I started part one of the podcast by saying that the Houston Texans pass rush is probably the scariest thing in the AFC side of the playoffs right now. I just cannot get over the Cleveland Browns game against the Steelers, that the Steelers just sold out not to give Myles Garrett the sack record. And I'm kind of like, wait, can you find a way to do that against all of the Houston Texans, that they just can't touch Rodgers? Because does the fact that they have such a shallow offense nullify that pass rush, and then you get those explosive plays right when it's needed? Their biggest wins of the year have come when there's been a deep ball out of nowhere, whether that's the Dublin game, whether that's the game the other day against the Ravens. All of a sudden, they have a deep ball that seemingly goes for a 40 or 50-yard touchdown, and they're able to win those games.
Yeah, the whole thing with the Steelers is like it's not that it's frustrating. I guess firstly, sorry, I didn't answer my first question. The strategy is you go to bed at 7 o'clock and you wake up at 1 o'clock and you go back to bed at 20 to 5. That's the strategy. It works. If anybody is up for that, let me know. But I'm telling you now, it works. Really, really interesting matchup in the sense of at one point on Sunday Night Football, it looked like the Steelers wouldn't even get a matchup in wildcard weekend, and now they do. And they obviously go in against the Texans team that will be buoyant. I know Jason's going to talk about the Texans in a wee second, but I keep referring back to this Dublin game, and the Steelers have, there's been weeks where they've improved. There's been weeks where they fell down, and there have frankly been weeks from like week 13 onwards where you've asking yourself, what is this team? What is their direction, and where exactly do they want to go this season? To the point at one point in November that the crowd booed renegade and they were calling for Tomlin to be fired. I think it's really, really important. First off, the win in week 18 in terms of the motivation, the belief that it will give some of those rookie players, thinking, Jesus, we have Aaron Rodgers here. We can go on. We can do this. He's been there. He's done it. He's won it all. Hell, he won it all against us. That's the way they would look at it in that sense. I think it gives him huge belief, and I think it's a huge, huge moment for Mike Tomlin to win that game and to really not buy himself more time, but to really give him a good bit of a steadfast opportunity there going into the playoffs. But in terms of what I really enjoyed seeing, not just in terms of week 18, but across the last few weeks in terms of reporting and doing stuff for the team, I think Kenny Gainwell is the absolute X factor in this game. Like he can make plays at times where you really feel like the offense is down on those critical third down situations. And the thing that really impressed me the other night, especially on Sunday Night Football, was I think Rodgers talked about it after they were in the huddle before they scored the touchdown. And frankly, the players were like, just go out and enjoy yourselves here on like a second or third down. Just go out, just enjoy yourselves. Calvin Austin does a slant, gets into the end zone, scores a touchdown. And yes, it's not that hybrid, it's not that planned, but that's what football comes down to at the end of the day. Find yourself in space, make a play, make it happen. And when you've got a guy like Rodgers there who's clearly loving his time, enjoying his time, getting emotional, I think any NFL fan watching the football this weekend should be looking at it going, geez, this could be the last time that we see a legend of the game play in this situation. I know Jason will talk about the Texans here, but I will say this. Playing at home in probably the home closer for the year in Acrisure, regardless of result, lads, I think the Steelers defense has a day. Cam Hayward hasn't got much time left in them in terms of playing in the NFL. TJ Watt's back from his injury. Herbig, Sawyer, different guys.
DK Metcalf back.
DK Metcalf, I haven't even mentioned that big time. DK Metcalf's back. I think the Steelers win this game like 27-14 or 27-17. I don't think it's heart attack football, but I think the Steelers go in. And that's why I think in terms of the previous section of this podcast that we talked about that Chargers-Patriots game, for the Steelers, if the Chargers beat the Patriots, they play Denver. If they don't beat the Patriots and things fall as we expect them to an extent, the Steelers would have to go to Denver in divisional weekend, and Aaron Rodgers would have to go to Mile High. One, I'm a bit worried for my own DMs, pathetically, in terms of that there. But two, Jesus, what a matchup that is if it happens. I think the Steelers get it done, and I'd be really interested to see just how buoyed on they are in the field. Is there a lot more confidence there? Is it growing each week? Because they're as much in this mix as anybody else. Is they're finding a way to make it work, and that's all you need to do at this time of the season, lads.
I share part of your outlook on the game there, Mick, in that I do think that the Steelers' defensive front seven poses a big challenge to this Houston offense. That offensive line has struggled for a long time now. They have been better down the second half of the season, and for a unit that has been just chopped and changed each and every week, I think seen a good few players propping up Cole Popovich, the offensive line coach for Houston. So he does seem to be doing a good job. He's getting an adequate performance out of a very below par offensive line. So credit to him. But it's kind of Chargers vibes when you look at this offense and you look at CJ Stroud versus Justin Herbert, and that it's just very hard work because of those O-line struggles. No real form of running game. Woody Marks and Nick Chubb are the running backs there. Marks has averaged 3.6 yards a carry on the season, so it's just very tough going on the ground. And the one saving grace for the Houston offense has been that Stroud and Nico Collins connection, because Collins is, one of the best receivers in the league as far as I'm concerned. And you can guarantee, looking at that Steelers-Ravens game last week, that some of those Houston receivers will be licking their chops at some of the plays that Zay Flowers enjoyed against the Steelers secondary, where the Steelers just completely blew a few coverages. So as good as their front seven is, I think Houston offense will be hoping to catch them out on a couple of deep balls, because the Ravens certainly did that last week. But if you're talking about Houston, it's all about the defense, because it's such an impressive unit. And this is where my agreement with you probably ends, Mick, because I don't see a way Aaron Rodgers can lead the Steelers to having 27 points against this unit. I think if they win, it's going to be a slugfest, maybe a 17-14 kind of game. But this defense is elite. 17 points per game, 270 odd yards. Both are franchise records this year. Mark, you've talked enough about the pass rush, but Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson, best outside linebacker combo in the league, defensive end combo in the league there. 15 sacks for Hunter and 12 for Anderson. Don't let that fool you, though. I do think Anderson is the focal point of that pass rush. Offenses tend to put more of their resources on slowing down him, but some of his quick pressure rates, or those kind of elite statistics that you look for, he's really blossomed into the player they thought he'd be when they drafted him. And it's great to see. But it's not just at the front. In the middle, they've got Aziz Al-Shair, another Pro Bowl season for him. Very solid middle linebacker. Just a guy who's just going to make tackles. And he's decent in coverage as well. And then at the back end, you've got Stingley and Lassiter. That secondary is 19 interceptions on the year. So they're not just shutting down offenses up front. They're also able to be aggressive and make some big splash plays. Also, question this week maybe might be slowing down Freiermuth. Firstly, this Texans defense has been very good against tight ends this year. Trey McBride is probably the lone exception to that. He had a big game against them a few weeks ago, but generally they've managed to shut down opposing tight ends. And other than that, you mentioned Kenny Gainwell. It seems like he's been the X factor for a few weeks now, but he just is consistently getting those crucial first downs when the Steelers need him. So Houston will be feeling confident if they can slow production in those two areas, running back and tight end. And I think they're good enough to do it, to be honest. They're on a 9-game win streak now, is Houston, and to be honest, they've been in kind of playoff football mode since mid-season, because they've had to be to get to this point. They've just been in. If they didn't go 9 straight wins, they mightn't even be in this position in the playoffs. So you could say that they're battle tested, or you could say that they're about to run out of steam. I don't know which way you want to look at that, but I think the Steelers will have to rely on that home atmosphere to get this one over the line. It's going to be
the minute Renegade plays. The minute Renegade plays, they're finished. And you said about the 27 points. DK 2 touchdowns. Kenny Gainwell 1 defensive interception, pick 6.
There you go. No need to watch.
That's it. Go to bed. There's no need to watch this game, folks.
Like you said, Kenny Gainwell, he was the team voted MVP this season, so he is in himself an X factor. But I suppose when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, they did just get across the line. I see a question here from Jer. If Loop scored, would Tomlin have been fired? I think that game should have been almost billed as I don't know if in the WWE I probably could have called it something, but
do you know the
fired game?
I don't think it would have been a Rooney thing to fire him within the week. I think
it wouldn't have been, but it was against a team that ultimately did fire their head coach because of it, because the team wasn't right. And I don't think there's that level of, it's not dysfunction, but level of needing to fix it for the Houston Texans. Like the Steelers, that's what they were contending against last week, and I think the Houston Texans are absolutely a contender this year.
Do you remember the Dave Damashek NFL videos? Did you ever watch them? The NFL. This is going to be one of those moments where if the Ravens made the playoffs, Harbaugh wouldn't have been fired, Tomlin would have been fired, and then it's going to spiral off into some alternate univerce. I need to see that.
And does Mike Tomlin, after his length in the Pittsburgh Steelers, does he step back? Let's go. Part 4 of this podcast coming up.
But this is a discussion on Mark and Jason's podcast in the off season. Hogan and Hagen.
I actually like Hogan and Hayes.
Hagen-Dazs.
Hogan and Hayes works.
Hogan and Hayes premieres the day after the NFL Combine finishes every 2 weeks, Wednesday 9 a.m. local. Looking forward to it. But it is like it's a big off season. Pittsburgh has the draft. I think it's a bit of if Rodgers does go, it's a bit of a new era there. Maybe things could change, but at the same time, for a lot of those guys, it's a very, very proud moment. It's a smaller city, smaller team, etc. Huge team, but smaller organization in regards to different teams. Right, couple of things. Let's finish off with a couple of questions. Paddy says, "Give us one upset this weekend." I'm saying the Patriots lose to the Chargers. Put egg all over my face. Mark, give us an upset this weekend.
Yeah, I'm saying Jags over Bills. I think that's a big one.
Can I just take the Chargers as well? Because that's really the one I want to take. I don't want to Panthers against Rams.
Imagine we had like 4 upsets this weekend. Just like that would be just completely flip the script. There is one more I want to say here. Do you think any of the teams in this wildcard round can beat the Seahawks from Jared, be it NFC Championship game or Super Bowl? Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
Rams for one. 49ers, to be fair, I know it didn't go their way last week, but I just feel like any of these NFC West teams can beat each other. So
the Niners at full fitness, yes, absolutely. Like 100%.
To get Fred Warner back, yeah.
I don't hate the Philadelphia Eagles. I think their defense is something that they can hang their hat on for the moment. And then it's about the question that we got earlier on from Mickey asking about, well, will Kevin Patullo be able to draw something new up? I just think that the Philadelphia Eagles have proven the last 2 postseasons that they're able to just bring something fresh into January. When most teams dream that they have another level to go to, the Philadelphia Eagles have proven they can.
And just on that very quickly about the Seahawks, the whole scenario with the Pope, when there's a new Pope since the turn of the millennium, the Seahawks, in the same season that the Pope was being elected, have made it to a Super Bowl. I'm not saying they've won it, but they've made it to a Super Bowl. On that, we are looking at a potential rematch of a Super Bowl in terms of the Seahawks and the Broncos, or potentially, lads, Seahawks, Patriots as well. We could have Carolina against Denver, just as we finish off. What's the one matchup you like right now out of that playoff bracket for a Super Bowl? I like the Bills against the Seahawks, personally. I like it.
I feel like if I wanted, I don't know, I'm really into the Jags right now, Michael. I don't know, I'm probably obsessed because I was just
Jags against who? Jags against who?
Yeah, I know. If I had to run down, I don't want to do Eagles again. I do think so. For me, I think Jags Rams would be crazy.
Jags would be great in terms of press access. That's all I'm going to say to you, because of about 7 writers, it would be incredible if it was the Jags.
That was our London game. Like, I just think that would be. I just think that'd be insane. So I have to be rooting for that. And I love the storyline. I just think for ourselves going over as Pro Football Ireland, being able to ask whether it's Cohen about, okay, you literally went after your boy and went 9-1 down the stretch. They've just won 8 straight games. You're able to ask Sean McVay why they didn't arrive in until the Saturday evening and all this. I don't know, for some reason that's really sticking out to you right now, even though I'll change my mind 10 times.
I mean, if it's going to be storylines, then you've got to say the Steelers. Got to say the Steelers.
That would be handy. I'm not going to lie.
Steelers and the Panthers scraped their win there, so the Steelers have a handy matchup against the Panthers in the Super Bowl. That's what I'm looking for.
I've gone too deep, Jason. It's not just about the storylines. I've gone too deep on the Jags, so I need to just say that it was a storyline all along, and that's why I was leaning into it.
Obviously, a massive, massive weekend. We hope people enjoy the games. A reminder, that game is at 6 o'clock on Sunday on Virgin Media 2. You can check out our content all weekend across primarily Instagram, but also X. Quiet enough on the old TikTok these days. Need to get back onto it. But primarily Instagram. As I said, Dara and Conlon are in Miami from next Tuesday. The college football playoff semifinals are on Thursday and Friday. I am timestamping this, but I am saying that we'll have a review podcast before those boys jet out to Miami. And maybe at some point we'll have a chance on Jason and Mark's podcast to talk about the potential of Fernando Mendoza going to Arizona. Maybe that could be an interesting conversation. On that, I'm going to go log into my LinkedIn and update my status. But for now, from me, from Mark, from Jason, a reminder, we're presented by SBK. Do check out the link in the podcast bio. And 18 plus, please be gamble aware. And we will see you soon. Have a great weekend, lads. Cheers.